Hello everybody, this is Mr. Fletter. I'm just going to demonstrate how to balance a couple equations for you. These are very basic ones for the most part, and you won't be required to do anything more difficult than these for your test. So let's start with the first one. We have, what you want to do is just list the elements on both sides of the equation, on the reactant side and on the product side. So we have chlorine, sodium, and bromine, chlorine, sodium, and bromine. And on the reactant side, I have 2 chlorine. On the reactant side, I have 1 sodium and 1 bromine. On the product side, I have 1 sodium and 2 bromine. So I have some unbalanced equation right now. I have 2 chlorine, 1 and 1 is balanced for the sodiums, but the bromines are also out of balance. So looking at this, let's start with the chlorines. If I have 2 chlorines over here and I have 1 over here, if I put a 2 here, a 2 coefficient, that will balance my chlorines, but it'll also disrupt my sodiums. Well, let's try that. Put a 2 coefficient there. That changes my chlorines to 2 because the 2 coefficient affects the chlorines and the sodium. So now I've changed that and that on the product side of our equation. So my chlorines are good, my sodiums are now not good, and my bromines are not good. But look at, if I go now and try to balance the sodiums and put a 2 coefficient in front of there, I change this side to have 2 sodiums. The 2 affects the bromines as well, and look at, I've balanced my equation. Everything is equal, that checks out. Okay, so let's try another one. We have hydrogen and we have nitrogen, hydrogen and nitrogen. We have 2 hydrogen and 2 nitrogen, and on the product side we have 3 hydrogen and 2 nitrogen. Now this is one that Mr. Alexander talked about. Whenever you see an odd number and paired with an even number of atoms, you know that you have to do something to both of them. And what you need to do is find a common denominator for 2 and 3. And so what we would do to balance the hydrogens and these hydrogens with these hydrogens is we're going to take the common denominator of 6. What can we multiply times 2 to get 6 hydrogens over here? And that would be 3, making that 6. And to multiply times this to get 6 hydrogens, we would put a 2. And that would give us 6 hydrogens over here. Okay? Let's check our nitrogens now. Nitrogens, sorry, I had this wrong. We had only 1 nitrogen over here originally. Sorry about that. But we did have 2 hydrogens over here and 1 hydrogen, but look at that, 2 affected the nitrogen as well. So now we have 2 nitrogen and it's balanced. Okay? So remember, if you see an odd number of atoms paired with an even number of atoms, you know you have to do something to both of those in order to get the same number of atoms on both sides. Let's look at the next one. We have sodium and we have bromine, sodium and bromine. Sodium I have 1, bromine I have 2, sodium I have 1, bromine I have 2. Sorry, man, I'm messing up. Bromine I have 1. There's only 1 there. So sodiums are good, bromines are not good. So what could I do to my bromines? So I have 2 over here and 1 over here. Let's try putting a 2 there, which will help my bromines to be balanced, but it also threw off my sodiums. So now I have 2 over here and only 1 over here, but it's an easy fix by putting a coefficient in front of the sodium on the reactant side to make 2 sodiums on the reactant side. 2 and 2, 2 and 2, it checks. Okay, last one I'm going to demonstrate for you. We have copper, chlorine, hydrogen, and sulfur. Copper, chlorine, hydrogen, and sulfur. On the reactant side, I have 1 copper, 2 chlorine, 2 hydrogen, and 1 sulfur. And on the product side, I have 1 copper, 1 chlorine, 1 hydrogen, and 1 sulfur. So my chlorines and my hydrogens are out of balance. Let's see if I can do anything with that. If I have 2 chlorines and 2 hydrogens, if I put a 2 over here to balance my hydrogens, 2 hydrogens, 2 chlorines, that was an easy fix, because now I have 1 copper, 2 chlorine, 2 chlorine, 2 hydrogen, and 1 sulfur, 1 sulfur. That checks out. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, they're no more difficult than these right here for your test. If you have questions, make sure you ask. Thank you.